Before we get started here, I'll let everybody know that Councilor Bergman is double booked in a budget meeting at the mayor's office, who will be attending late. And he's particularly interested in a couple of topics we have on the agenda tonight. So we are going to change the order without objection to do Champlain Parkway first, which is item 4.3, followed by a GMT update second, 4.1, and then lastly we'll be doing unaccepted streets, 4.2. And with if there's no objection to that agenda change, I would entertain a motion to adopt it. So, is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion on what I said, what I proposed? I guess not. Okay, so all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
And we have an agenda. Next, we have adoption of the minutes from our April 28th meeting. I would entertain a motion on that. I move to adopt the minutes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
So we've adopted our minutes, and next we have public forum. If you're online and you want to speak at public forum, indicate by using the raise hand function on Zoom. Otherwise, we will, if we have at least one person in the room. Kara, if you could join us, and could you say your last name?
Simone.
Kara Simone. Go ahead, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. I live on Chittenden Drive, one of the roads currently classified as unaccepted but public. I want to express my deep concern about the approach being proposed for these streets and the contradictions residents are being asked to navigate. For decades, 6 decades to be clear, to be just about 6 decades now, the city has treated Chittenden Drive as part of the public roadway system. The city has plowed it, repaired potholes, issued permits for homes, regulated and charged for curb cuts, and relied on the roadway for public access and infrastructure projects. During the road reconstruction project, for instance, heavy equipment and materials were staged on our streets, which significantly damaged the roadway. A picture here of that, so everyone can see. It was actually worse on the other side of the street because those bulldozers with the, the ridged, I don't know what they're called, but they were parked on the other side of the street. It's really torn up the street. It never was repaired. And nobody, of course, nobody owns the street, so nobody was asked for permission. So at the same time, residents are now being told that we may ultimately be responsible for assessments, engineering reviews, legal work, surveying, upgrades, and other costs in order for the city to formally accept the road. This is difficult to understand, especially when road ownership is not part of our deeds. The original development company no longer exists. I think their rights expired in the 90s, and homeowners purchased these properties with every reason to believe this functioned as a public city street. What is especially frustrating is that this situation has been known for a long time. In 2014, we had a neighbor who wanted to subdivide their property, and there was like a legal battle and went all the way up to the Vermont Supreme Environmental Court. And Steve Goodkind actually, under testimony, said that the reason that the city had not accepted the streets is because of the cost, because it's a budgetary issue. We said that under oath, so we have that on record. And I just want to say that I understand that every year the budget is going to be a problem. Every year there's not going to be enough money and there's competing projects. But we are taxpayers and we've been left in limbo for decades because nobody wants to deal with this situation. And I appreciated you, Director Chapin, saying at the City Council meeting, that these streets have been allowed to degenerate over these decades because nobody has responsibility for them. At the same time, the website, the DPW website, says that the roads must be brought up to a certain condition in order for them to be accepted. It's like a Franz Kafka novel, like I'm a homeowner. I don't own the street. I certainly don't have the means. I have I think I've got $40,000 in my retirement account. I'm 62 years old. I can't bring the street up to repair. And my taxes are significant. I pay $13,000 a year for my raised ranch, and that doesn't allow me a lot of room to save, especially for projects like this. I understand we want to build a bridge in New Scheme, do all these things, but we are residents here, and this spreads across all 6 wards or however many wards we have. Meanwhile, we've continued paying substantial city property taxes while living with the consequences of this unresolved status. So in my case, I bought my house in 2002. I lived in Burlington since 1987. I was denied access to Vermont gas. So I wanted Vermont gas to, I'm like the first house on Chittenden Drive, I wanted it to come up to my road, to my house. And they said they could do it for $12,000. But then Tony Carmelo, who was alive at the time, said, no, you can't do it. They said, oh, he said, no. I'm like, okay. So I have to now dealing with paying $6 a gallon for propane. It's crazy. And I also don't have access to Burlington Telecom. But yes, I'm paying these premium taxes. So the city has effectively kicked the proverbial can down the road for nearly 60 years, and we're now being asked to absorb the financial and legal burden of resolving a problem that we did not create. I've since learned that Tony apparently had no right to say that at the time. He couldn't stop utilities from coming up the street, but they believed that he could. And so I didn't get Vermont gas. I could have rolled it into my mortgage at the time, but maybe I could do it again. It would just be tens of thousands of dollars. It was $12,000 in 2002. No idea how much it would be today. So I just want to say that the letter you guys all sent us was kind of upsetting. So I was just, the recent letter that we received said that we would continue to have access to our properties during this process. That's so generous of you, and that we're going to continue to have access to our properties. I mean, I've lived on this property, paid taxes for this property. And during this process, that at times it says it's going to be a year, and then in the letter it said 2 to 3 years. I mean, I would just say that this could be resolved next month if we wanted it to be. We could just grandfather these streets and deal with the maintenance as it comes up. Okay. So the issue is fairness, responsibility, and whether homeowners should now be expected to finance the resolution of a decades-long municipal ambiguity. So I just want to say that another major contradiction is that the city has acknowledged that these roads, I think I said this before, continue to deteriorate, and that action is needed now, while also acquiring roads to meet modern acceptance standards or undergo upgrades as part of this process. That creates an impossible situation for many residents. We don't have sidewalks on my road, for instance, but I know that there are other accepted roads in Burlington that also don't have sidewalks. Amaroy is one that comes to mind. I believe roads like this should be evaluated in the context of their longstanding public use, historical treatment by the city, and the realities of older infrastructure. A grandfathering approach or flexible acceptance framework would be far more reasonable than expecting homeowners to resolve decades of legal and infrastructure ambiguity tied to roads that they do not own. I have no ownership of this road at all. And neither does anybody else. And it's not ambiguous. DeForest Realty developed this part of the Homestead actually designed this neighborhood in the 50s or something, 40s, whatever they did. And then Tony Carmelo developed it as part of DeForest Realty in the 60s. And that was dissolved in the 90s. And with his death and the death of DeForest Realty, there's no entity that owns this. And it's not legally ambiguous. You don't have to go back 40 plus years to research that. So I'm asking this committee and the Burlington City Council to recognize the unique circumstances of roads like Chittenden Drive and pursue a solution that reflects the city's longstanding treatment and use of these roads rather than placing the burden primarily on the residents. I just want to say, even if I could afford to buy a road and maintain it, I don't even, I don't own it. I don't have any deed to it. So I don't know how I could be responsible for doing this. So
If you want to, thank you for your comment. If you want to submit that here, when you have it writing.
Yeah, I'll do that.
You can send it or you can leave it with Rob.
I'll leave it here and I can send it to. I'm sorry for talking so much about this, but it is like, I just think any day now, what if a pipe bursts in the road or something? Like, I can't afford to fix that, and my property's not worth anything anymore, you know.
Thanks for.
Okay, all right, it's taking too much time.
Thanks. Is there anybody else online you'd like to speak of? I don't. Sure. But if you want to participate, indicate by raising your hand, using the raise hand function, I should say. I'm not seeing anybody. So I'm going to go ahead and close public forum. And open our deliberative agenda. And as I said at the top of the meeting, we've changed the order so that we're taking the Champlain Parkway item first, GMT second, unaccepted streets last. Yes, we're gonna kick that off.
Yeah, Gordon Mims, Senior Public Works Engineer, consultant for the Parkway. Kind of as indicated in the memo, as part of the Council's motion amendment to the authorization to award the final construction contract back in August 24, a couple additional conditions were placed on the project, one of which was to work with the two to discuss the planned monitoring of the traffic on the Champlain Parkway post-construction. That additional condition, along with other Act 250 requirements that the project already has, have been summarized in the memo to kind of indicate what we are looking anticipating doing moving forward, just to monitor and also report back to council annually for the next 2 years post-construction on the operational evaluation of the park. So just kind of real quick go through, as part of the Act 250, there's a couple of intersections that are identified to have traffic counts continued on them post-construction, being Locust Avenue with Pine Street, Howard Street with Pine Street, based on the initial design and understanding of the traffic counts that were done and final traffic modeling that occurred. No upgrades to those intersections identified as being necessary underneath the parkway. However, traffic counts for the Howard Street intersection were ones that were closer to potentially triggering a intersection modification. And as such, part of the Act 250 was to post-construction monitor those traffic levels to see if the current configuration still functions as designed. Additionally, along Lakeside Avenue, virtually all of Lakeside Avenue is identified as being monitored post-construction, just due to the transition from the new roadway section into the existing Pine Street corridor. This is going to see a lot of that traffic coming in, and with the operation of the multiple signals, those are all between Pine Street, Champlain Parkway, and Lakeside, as well as the two DPW driveway and the 120 Lakeside Avenue driveway that are signalized, monitor their operations to ensure that traffic is and report what traffic operations and potential modifications may be necessary. That was also part of the Act 250, which the city will be doing. As part of the project, the city of Burlington also has installed Mile Vision, which is a traffic signal operational equipment that has cameras that allows us to ability to do traffic counts, which we will be utilizing that subscription to make regular current counts and take that data to use in our evaluations of the operations of those signals. That data, along with any traffic incident reports that the BPD may have, along with notifications from the public, whether it be see-click fix or emails to info@champlainparkway.com or other emails directly to staff, are being cataloged, kept, and will also be used in the review of the operation of the parkway post-construction for 2 years. So with those, I feel pretty reasonably that we're pretty robust in how we are observing the parkway, And just to be specifically, the mile vision are at all signalized intersections, which also includes Maple intersection at Pine and King intersection at Pine, as well as Main Street and Pine Street. So that data is all anticipated to be taken, as well as prior to opening. We are looking to get that subscription up and running so that we can ensure that we are getting traffic counts prior to opening of the parkway to use also in comparison with post opening of the parkway here in June as part of our report back counts. Again, as part of that original amended motion language to come and work with the two to determine whether or not other additional coordinations or thoughts are had on what DPW is proposing to do and planning to move forward with. Just presenting that here today with an opportunity to have the two review comments, and then if necessary, we are giving ourselves capacity or the space to be able to come back in June prior to opening of the Champlain Parkway, which is scheduled for June 29th. Mark your calendars. I believe 10 a.m. We are looking to schedule that. There also is media plug here, a being planned June 21st fun run, 1 mile run on the Champlain Parkway itself that we're working to coordinate with Run Vermont, also leading up to the opening of the Champlain Parkway.
Yeah, say it for you. Ready for questions?
Yes, sorry. Yes, that was my questions, comments.
Yeah. I'll open it up to the committee for questions.
No, not right now. Thank you.
Becca?
Yeah, I just had a quick question, and I'm sorry if I just missed this, but you said you were tracking like feedback on See Click Fix. What is the process for tracking, like if there are accidents and fender benders, from people like getting used to the new road and understanding any volume of more sort of safety, like actually documented crashes type of thing?
Yeah, I'd said also what part of it would be working with BPD on getting incident reports. So that would be partially what we'd also use to anything that there's a police report on, that we could have information, whether it is just, minor bumper to any potential more significant interaction that gets recorded. We would be looking at those and having that be included in our information that is reviewed for the functionality of those intersections.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard, I mean, it's anecdotal and I'm sure you're hearing some of this too, but I have heard several reports of people just going, like when the lights were flashing red, people just rolling on through without stopping. And so I think any data that could give us, or just common sense tools to give us some better like warnings and communications as people, your muscle memory takes time to adjust, as I'm sure you probably know, like all the science behind that, and that I do not know. But I think that's just important to monitor closely, like almost more in real time. But that's my only question and comment. Thank you. This sounds great.
One part of that is, we are also working with our public outreach team to send out a couple of updates here prior to opening, just reminding people of, with the new signalization, it is installed in Maple and King up in that area where people, to your effect, like what you're saying, with the muscle memory, people are so used to stopping at a four-way stop that it is, I stopped at a red light, but now I can go. Oops, no, it's actually a light, not a stop sign. So that has been observed. It takes time for drivers to kind of get accustomed to changing conditions. So we are sending out an update. We're working on drafting that will be one coming up here soon and another prior to opening, just reminding people that, the signal timing up in that area is intended for Pine Street predominant movements. Pine Street is the arterial going through there, and Maple and King are residential streets. They're intended for local traffic. They're not intended for cut through. They're not intended for truck trafficking. And so, we really want to promote to the public that, Pine Street to Main Street really is the preferred route. And that's what the timings for the lights, what people will start to see is actually more efficient than trying to do a cut through. I appreciate your input. And we will definitely keep our ear to the ground for any information from folks.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Becca. I have questions about the data collection that's going on currently. Have you been monitoring the intersection at Maple and Pine and Pine already? And
Yes, we've been doing more just observational monitoring. We don't have the traffic system. While it's there, we don't have the licenses quite figured out. It's a technical thing. We're just trying to figure out the technology and how to make sure we're capturing that data properly. So I'm working with our traffic group to make sure we're locking that in soon. We're hoping to have it up and accessible very soon. But right now, we've been doing site visits periodically at different peak hours, both the morning rush and the afternoon, kind of seeing. I've been out there for a couple hours, a couple different times the last few weeks, just to kind of see when things are backing up, how long things back up down Maple while waiting for the signal before they turn, how many cars are coming westbound on Maple trying to make that left turn that backs up cars, and how long Pine Street does or doesn't last in their queue. So yeah, we're doing that. We're taking notes. We're kind of seeing like how much time does it take for it to clear it through? How many cycles is it taking to clear the cars down Battery up to Maple? And it's 2.5 sometimes, because when there's not cross traffic or conflict and drivers are paying attention, you can get a good amount of cars through there in a short amount of time compared to what used to be the stop go condition for four-way. So we're doing that. We're taking those, and that in conjunction with additional counts, we're all going to come into our evaluation of that. But we are monitoring it, and we are seeing. And again, that behavior, people kind of muscle memory, so to speak, versus learning what the new conditions actually are out there.
Right. I think there's a lot of us who have muscle memory, and we go all the way down to Maple and then come up to Pine. And I did that today on the way to this meeting, and I can report that the traffic was queued all the way to Battery.
Yep.
But as soon as the light goes, it flushes that queue out, maybe faster. So it's just it's a different traffic pattern than what we're used to. And, maybe like you said, the preferred route might be to go up Main Street and hit Pine there, and people just need to get used to that.
Right.
So anything you can do to sort of, if you notice congestion, I don't know what the forum would be to communicate that in, perhaps in a front porch forum post to like one of your public announcements. I'm not sure. I'm not suggesting you do that yet, but just keep an eye on it.
Yeah, I think that's part where we're saying that the primary truck route and the primary route is Pine down Main to Battery, being that, again, local traffic only is anticipated, not local traffic only, but generally speaking, local traffic is where Maple and King we're trying to get folks to not use as their memory route. Right. This is how I've always gone. This is where I'm going to go. I think, again, once people start like realizing that, oh, now the patterns are different. This route that I did so often is actually not the most effective. But again, it takes time. When people on day 2 are saying this doesn't work, we need to go back to what it was. We, the city, and those who speak on behalf of it need to be kind of standing our ground to say it takes time for people to adjust. And while something doesn't appear to be functioning on day 2, there's time that has to be allowed for people to actually process what they're supposed to be doing versus what they always have done. Once we get there, I think people will see that the new operation is not as painful as it initially feels.
Yeah, anecdotally, I'll just report. I think it's a little bit better than the four-way stop, the signalized intersection, but it seems to move a little bit quicker, even if you are backed up. Seems to pretty quicker, but we'll see. We'll see what the data says.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Is there any other comment or last thoughts on this before we close the item?
I think the only piece I'd add is just there's a number of pieces for the Parkway that are coming to the council.
Yes.
We do have the item about timeline coming, how long the signals need to operate before the interstate connection is made. That's coming to the council on June 1st. That was unanimously approved by the Board of Finance.
Yep.
And then coming on the 15th is
so the 15th is going to be a request to execute a maintenance agreement with the state of Vermont and South Burlington for the completion of the Parkway. It's a necessary document. We met with all parties here just last week to finalize kind of those details. And just need to have that as part of our requirements to have it executed in advance of opening the Parkway. So that item is just, generally speaking, in line with previous agreements and obligations the city already has, just formalizing it. So that will come forward as well.
So wanted you to know that there are a couple action items for the council as we move towards opening. And I appreciate Corey mentioning our public events coming up. We'll certainly be circulating the word broadly to councilors and to the public here momentarily.
Excellent. Well, nothing else on this item. We'll thank you for the update and move on to what was advertised as 4.1, the GMP update, the routes 1 and Route 11 in downtown. Wait here for that.
Chris and I don't get along, so we sit on opposite sides of the table when we present. So, Clay Clark, General Manager, Fremont Transit, and I'm going to turn things over to Chris momentarily. But I wanted to provide a quick update on some funding issues that I brought up at the last time that I was here. And so the state T-bill is continuing to work its way through its process. It has the same funding levels for us, or the Senate version that passed has the same funding levels for us as the House. And I think more importantly, long term, the Senate concurred with the language from there was a House passed version that gives us expanded ability to enter into service agreements. And so with that language and identical language in both versions of the bill, I think that it's the likelihood of that falling out during the committee conference, I think is pretty light. So that's positive on the state side. Federally, there was some news coming out of the House of Representatives last week regarding a potential surface transportation bill. Folks may recall that I had some concerns about what the new bill would look like, specifically around flexing highway funds to public transit. And I'm really happy to report that the bill would not prohibit that. And so what that means is that the sort of the worst case scenario for what the next funding bill could look like for GMT, I think is pretty much off the table. Because that worst case scenario was if we weren't able to flex those funds, because Vermont is of all of the small rural states, we flex the most to public transit, and it would have a big impact. There's also some potentially positive news regards to stick factors, that it would increase the funding for stick awards by 66%, which is great. So that instead of with our 4 stick factors that we currently receive, we get about $2.1 million in extra assistance from the feds. This could potentially be another about $1.5 million.
Can you explain what stick factors are for anybody listening?
Yes. And so stick is a small transit intensive city. And there are 6 factors for transit agencies of GMT size category. And so that's urban areas of under 200,000. And if GMT is above certain averages, then we get additional funding through this competitive program. So the great news is that if we continue to do well with 4 out of the 6 competitive awards, that could be another additional $1.5 million. The thing that worries me is that it would require another $1.5 million of state and local funds to draw down. So that's I don't know, but that will be difficult to get an extra $1.5 million of state and local. And so, but at least there is that potential opportunity. I can tell you when we think about a $3 million funding gap, and $1.5 million of extra stick factors, and then another $1.5 million of extra state and local match, it would fill the gap. But I'm under no illusion that you all are sitting on piles of gold, just itching to give it away. So it's hopeful, but I know that it will continue to be a challenge to get those funds. So that's the update on our financial position, and I'll be happy to answer questions, or we can turn it over to Chris, who's going to talk a little bit about the 1 and the 11.
Would it make sense to ask questions about funding first?
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah.
Yeah. No questions? Becca, do you have questions?
Nope, none from me. Thank you.
And
I guess I'll ask a question actually.
yeah, it's okay.
Just like, have you been to the other, I assume you've been to the other areas so far to give us some more update to this? What have been the reactions of the other areas?
So this is, you're the first municipality to get the news. Yep, and so the first news came out last week, and I haven't sent an update out. I hope to do it by the end of this week or next week. And with that said, I know that a couple of our members have indicated that they perhaps have additional funding that they could contribute, but I think that is probably maybe 2 of the 8. And so, yeah, I think that we're all feeling pretty much like the couch cushions have been gone over many times over.
Thank you.
My question's about, I guess, about if the federal funding landscape improves like it might be reported, when would we have to make decisions about local and state match?
And so there's still a question about whether this bill will make it through the process this year, or whether there'll be a continuing resolution. If it makes it through the process this year, then we would need to have our fiscal year 28 assessments that we would send out in November of this year. That's where we would need to see the boost, and also in the fiscal year 28 T-bill. Because obviously, I would like it if that was not just municipalities, but state and municipalities.
So we should start working on that.
Yeah.
Or at least anticipating that that's something that we have to consider.
Yes.
Yeah, excellent. Any other questions on funding? If not, we'll turn to Chris for the route updates.
Great. So Chris Damiani, Director of Planning at GMT. That's just a static image of what I'm going to pull up on the screen. So, yeah, here to talk, really excited about talking about bringing bidirectional travel on routes 1 and 11 to all of Main Street in Burlington with the completion of the Main Street project this summer. For us, we are hoping to bring this change at our next schedule change, which is slated for June 29th. And so we'll see the changes to the routing here for the 1 and the 11. We'll see changes to the number 5, bringing it all the way up the Parkway up here, and then changes to our Montpelier link schedule also with the June 29th change. And this is just another really great example of linking our major investments, the city's major investments in infrastructure, both for transit, walking and biking, and just the streetscape design that Great Streets has. And so this is something that we've been doing both here in Burlington and as well as with our other member municipalities in South Burlington, with the city center there. In August, with USK's completion of their main streets, and we'll also be bringing bidirectional travel on their main street as well. So it's really a great opportunity and great time to do that. And so right now, the number 1 and the 11, they currently have different routings on both the outbound being out of town and on the inbound going into town. Right now, as they leave town, they go from the transit center onto South Winooski Ave and then up Main Street, and on the inbound, they come all the way down Main Street, up Battery to the transit center. And so with the completion of this, we'll be able to, with the new routing, we'll be able to service 2 new stops. And so for the 1 and 11, as they leave town, we'll have them go out of the transit center, go down Cherry Street, come down Battery, and then we will have 2 new stops, 1 in front of Ski Rack on the outbound, as well as 1 at the bottom of Church and Main Street, where the city has put a brand new shelter, created a really great pedestrian infrastructure to accommodate folks there, and the bus will continue up Main Street in that. So that allows us to accomplish a couple other things. Is really good transit design is having your bus stops located approximately a quarter mile to a fifth of a mile apart from each other. And so this allows, with this completion of the street grid and other street grid connections in the city, we'll basically be able to have a stop every 2 blocks. With the 2 new stops I mentioned, we'll be closing the stop in front of the gas station at Main Street and South Winooski. And then another 2 blocks is the one right in front of Edmond. So that really creates a nice 2-block spacing along this corridor. With the rerouting, the 1 and the 11 would no longer service the stop in front of South Winooski Ave and Bank Street. So that is a very popular stop for these routes. But with the short distance to the brand new stop with the shelter at the bottom of Church Street, the design really will help accommodate both the influx of people moving from the handy stop and the Main Street and South Winooski to this new stop, and again provide that bi-directional travel. And so really, with that, we'll be putting up posters and doing some public outreach. We'll reach out to Rob, and any messaging we'll be putting out the next couple of weeks. But really excited to have this routing change effective at the end of June.
And that'll give us 15-minute service along Main Street.
Along the entirety of Main Street, yeah. So that was, we came in, I don't know, a year and a half ago, talked about the rerouting of the number 11. This is sort of that last and final stage of completing that 15-minute service between Burlington and South Burlington.
Thank you. So open up to the committee for questions. Excuse me. Becca, do you have questions?
No, this sounds great. Very clear. Thank you.
Yeah, I concur. Go ahead.
This is great, obviously. I would be remiss to not mention that that people continue to remind the city council about the ongoing moving of specialist services from the hospital to Tilley Drive. Now that this plan is kind of about to be implemented, maybe this is a conversation for once the budget situation is figured out for the next year. Will there be consideration of at least studying what it would take to extend a route out to Tilley Drive?
It certainly keeps coming up, and I think that as more services get projected out to Tilley, it just the argument for connecting there gets more. We certainly have heard in our public meetings and in other forums that the current arrangement just is a difficult day because of the typically means that folks are spending many hours out there because of the way that the schedule aligns, and so absolutely I'm going to continue to study it. And you're also right that we're really hesitant to consider anything that would be like a new service until we have a lay of the land financially. So hopefully this fall would give us sort of some clarity on what the future looks like, and then we can decide whether or not that makes sense. But I do think that it's something that every year that goes by, there's a better argument for why it needs to be connected.
Great, thank you. I guess just continuing on Eric's question, would GMT, or would it be a hospital or a GMT function to sort of study that? In terms of who pays,
yeah,
there's a different question than what are the options and what it might look like, whether it's a circulator that goes back and forth, or it's a new route that happens to go by Tilley or whatever. And it would seem to me that maybe that work is independent of actually implementing them, or to understand how much it costs. So
yes,
if there are people that have to pay for it, then you'd be able to go to them and say it's going to cost X or Y to do it different ways.
And the thing is that because of our labor contracts, we are only going to be pricing out what it would be for us to do the service with our fixed route transit, because we can't come up with a plan that would need, to outsource that to SSTA. And so that's where, to me, the hospital is going to have to consider its non-GMT, transit options, because we're only going to be able to recommend, using our labor, and so we'll be somewhat the proposals that we put in will be somewhat insular in that sense, that the solution will be provided.
Understood. Yeah, thank you.
Is there an opportunity to make a public comment?
On this particular topic? We had public forum, but you weren't here.
Sure, yeah, I work for medically. One, I think the hospital should consider foot things so people can get to them, but we do transport a lot of people there in private or group rides. Our members have a lot of trouble getting there, so I think we could probably generate a report of how many, at least Medicaid members, go to Chili Drive.
You say your name for the record.
Sorry, my whole report.
Okay, thank you. No, appreciate you coming and giving us that update. Are you have more? Go ahead.
No, I just want to put this out there for you, Chair. That might be worth to bring this update about, I guess in general about GMT to a future committee update. Because it gets brought to me a lot, at least in the year.
Right. I'm wondering what the right format is to sort of advance the discussion. And so what are you suggesting?
I was suggesting you bring this update to the committee updates portion of ours.
Yes, I could do that. Absolutely, I could do that. But we appreciate you coming here today.
I'm sad to miss Gene on his birthday. I was going to give him some birthday wishes.
He's still not. I've been sort of like scanning for him.
So if you could just let him know, I would, that I'm disappointed that he was late.
Well, we'll pass the birthday wishes along. Thank you. Which brings us to our last deliberative item. I want to jinx us, but I think it's good. Which is the unaccepted streets update. And excuse me?
Richard, comment.
They're just leaving this. I don't know who's running.
Check my screen. Slowly. Great, Phil Peterson, Senior Transportation Engineer and Planner with the City of Burlington. Thanks for letting us come and present on this very important item. This is the fourth occasion that we've come to discuss this important project. We're going to try and go through the presentation pretty quickly. Some of this information will be repeats, but obviously the presentation will be shared to the Tube webpage. So it's just kind of an overview of the things we're going to discuss. Some background information that we already know a lot of this. So what is DPW doing now? Tech Services. We're doing the legal review because first and foremost, the Unaccepted Streets project is about legality. Who owns what? So that's where it starts. So we're doing a deep dive into that in about a month. Alvin, myself, and the majority of Tech Services will be going to the CT office to go into the land records and do a deep dive into land ownership to see, are we missing documentation? Is there anything that we don't have, or are we pretty much accurate in what we know? We're also developing a grading system. Actually, Tech Services has already developed a matrix for surface condition, but we also have to work with other utilities, water resources, and Burlington Electric, because those are considerations. And then we're going to take all that information, put it into this matrix, and sort streets into different assessment phases, which Calvin's going to discuss.
So, hello everybody, I'm Calvin Wittrick, Associate Public Works Engineer with DPW. Just to go off of what Philip was discussing, the work that we have recently just completed was surface condition assessments of all unaccepted streets within the city. From that, we've been out on these streets, we've taken pictures, taken observations, taken measurements, and we've created our own grading system specifically for the surface condition pieces of unaccepted streets. And so this will be then used, as Philip mentioned, in conjunction with the utility work, utility inspections, assessments that other divisions will be doing. We'll be working with them on that. Just to show here below, example within our condition assessments that unaccepted and private streets can look very different and vary a lot throughout the city. For example, West Road on the left, in some ways on the surface looks a lot like a city street, paved with curb. Something like Colchester Court might have some other legal conditions such as restricted resident parking, privately owned and privately run, and Riverview Drive looks a lot like a rural Vermont dirt road. So just a variety of conditions. And again, these surface conditions don't necessarily dictate what's underneath the surface as far as utilities go. So getting into the draft phasing framework. So this is something that we've been working on as far as how the specific street to street is assessed and when that is assessed. So, one group of streets that we're going to look to break off is the streets under documentation and ownership review. So these are a lot of streets that are part of condo associations, HOAs, streets where there's likely an owner of the street itself. And we just are going to look to do the legal research, as well mentioned, on those streets, confirm private ownership or just learn more about the private ownership there, but assess those separately from the rest of the streets. As for the rest of the streets, we're going to separate them based on condition and other legal factors throughout. But generally, phase one streets assessed first will be those with lower infrastructure acceptance risk, those that generally match expectations and condition of city streets, streets that have been accepted by the city of Burlington. And kind of, phase two, moderate risk, and phase three, other streets that have significant challenges to acceptance. But throughout, we're going to look to balance our workload. So there may be some other factors that influence this categorization.
And it's not just what's on the surface that we look at that could drive what phase the street is in. It could be the condition of the utilities that we can't see, that we don't have the ability to assess. That could drive it down, or it could be a legal arrangement that is an unknown thing. So that's kind of the phasing.
So getting into the street by street evaluation process, I'm just going to give a brief overview here. This is
a printout of this.
So this is available within the memo as well. I don't know if you want it print out for right now. It's in the memo. It'll be available on the website as well, and linked within this. It'll be on the site for YouTube as well. But just to give a general gist of what's going on here, where we are describing what we're working on now is we're really gathering all the information that we can about these streets, about the legal aspects of it, about the condition itself. We've put out a letter to residents as well. So public input will be back in as well. But essentially what DPW is going to do is gather information along with other divisions and make a recommendation to City Council. And City Council will ultimately decide whether the street is accepted or not. So kind of the big takeaway, with all the bubbles here is that DPW is going to make the recommendations and City Council is also going to make the decisions on a street by street basis.
So what are our next steps? We're going to continue our land records review, our legal review. We're going to continue coordination with Water Resources, Burlington Electric, and even Burlington Fire Departments on any emergency access issues. We're going to produce a phased list of streets, and we hope to have that at a future update to the tube no later than August. Here's a link to the webpage, and we're happy to take any questions and get into discussion with city councilors.
Thank you. Could you add this presentation to the agenda? But it's not there. I noticed the membership. Yeah. Thank you.
I would like to speak a little bit to some of the legal challenges. Having asked our city attorney's office, what does it take to accept a street under various different kind of terms and conditions? And it's not simple. Is the part that's really hard. It's not simple. To condemn a street, which is something the city council is familiar with, not maybe a street, but a property. It's a lot of title research. We need to know everything about everybody on the property, every mortgage company that holds an interest in the different parcels. It's a lot of research. There are a couple of various different conditions, depending on if it is a private entity that currently owns it. I do want to speak to your public comment earlier. DeForest Realty existed until 2023. As a company registered with the state of Vermont, where it dissolved and became inactive, 2023. It's hard. Who owns it now?
The 1990s, nobody owns it now.
Nobody owns it. Nobody owns it in our current records. The last time I checked on it, which was in the late 2019, the Forest Realty was an active company. It is on the Secretary of State website. Ready? Where it went from there deed-wise, we haven't found it in the land records. It is one of the reasons why we're going to go do another comb through. The last city's paralegal that went through this did it after COVID. So we're going to go through to work on finding additional records that could exist in there that either she did not find, or that have existed since that last partake. But the big thing is that this is not a simple thing. Even if the city council says tomorrow, we want to accept 23 of these unaccepted streets, there's a lot of research that has to go into doing this properly, because you can't take people's property if they actually own it. And even if you do condemn it, there is a legal process by state statute in which we have to take stuff.
Lawyers, land surveyors, it's all legal, and it's what we have to do.
So done 60 years ago.
It is a mess, unfortunately, that we are all partaking in, that no one of us created. But we are working towards resolving that issue.
Can you just explain this phase?
I'm sorry, this is, and I appreciate you being here, but I think we need to have the deliberation at that council. But here, we've entertained the questions, maybe I'm writing that. Let's check. Okay. Okay, do you have more, Laura?
No, I just wanted to kind of explain, because I have gotten the sense that, we are moving towards acceptance of a reasonable number of the streets as to kind of what needs to go into it when we finally do reach that part of the flow chart, where we're going to ask you the question, we've done all this, it's going to, it's second purple bubble is the first one of like, how far do we want to go down this list? Are these streets that we are looking to accept versus not accept? As we give you the final amount of information, all of the titles, who we're taking it from, how much it's going to cost of infrastructure to bring it up to speed on whatever year it is, that last triangle, pink triangle, purple triangle, is kind of the last legal process of transacting and what that actually takes.
So good. Thank you. Are there questions from the council, from the committee?
I have a sort of comment when you're ready. Sorry, I can't see you guys super well.
Yep, we're gonna ourselves unshared.
Stop sharing so we can see you.
Oh, there you go. Okay. All right, and now I can turn my video on a little bit here. Hi. Thank you for this. I think that flow chart is really helpful, if only, I think it's a great resource for residents to say, okay, here's where we are in the process for your street. And I think that will really help with a lot of the questions that we've been getting, and hopefully provide a little bit of relief to folks. If I can, Laura and others, I'm not sure. I think there's probably a lot of considerations for this, but to me, it seems logical and just sort of the best path for building consensus and trust in this process, for you all to start with streets that we do plan to accept, right? Like, can we go through a batch of accepting streets and learn, and tackle like a bundle of them at once and learn what that takes. Because I think if we start with streets that maybe aren't going to be accepted, it's just going to be a much more negative process. Unless, of course, you find a deed and it's very clear and it's just like boom, boom, boom. So that would just be something for your consideration. Like, let's get some wins under our belts that everyone feels great about, build some trust here, and see what the implications are, right? Like, let's see how big of a deal the cost is, or, maybe there will be solutions that we find along the way that that make us like eligible for more grant funding because we have more miles of streets. And it would just be good to learn that throughout. So that's my main piece of feedback. And I just think the graphic is really helpful as well. I also think, so I have had a few residents do some digging on their own and send me documentation. And I do just want to make sure that is like that. I think the person who sent me stuff was maybe a lawyer themselves. And I want that to be accessible, like that level of searching to be available to everyone. You know, it's not really fair if only lawyers can figure that out, right? So I do think there needs to be a step here for, you know, like a call for submission of public documents or something. Because I don't know, I think that could maybe go both ways. Of course, you don't want to get inundated with documents that aren't useful, but at the same time, you might have some folks who maybe have lived here for a long time and would kind of know what paths to pursue just from their life experience. So that's another consideration. Sorry, I have a puppy in the background. So that's it. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Becca.
Yeah, thank you. I guess to whatever level you can explain, I'm curious to how you would subdivide the different phases, I guess. I saw like limited, moderate, significant, but as someone who doesn't know the code of the streets off the top of my head,
Sure.
what would that kind of indicate, and how is it measured in terms of how long or how much it would take to get it up to standard?
Yeah, let me give it a shot. So some of these unaccepted streets, they look like a city street. They even have city signs on a street it's not accepted, but it looks like a city street. Service condition looks pretty good. It's got curb, not bad. It's got lighting, excellent. We don't know what's going on underground. What's going on underground could be, so we know what's going on the surface, and we've assessed that. We've done that. We've created that matrix. We also don't know, to Laura's point earlier, what are the legal potholes, right? We don't know what's going on there. There could be some legal things where someone might have some problems with what we're doing. But that's kind of a high.
Great. So we're in the effort of trying to get this process moving so that we can have some wins, so that we can be successful. We are looking to understand kind of the difficulties that are going to come with each of the streets, because like Burlington, as similar as a street looks, there's actually a lot of uniqueness to each street, even if it looks, you know, it's North Cove and North Ave extension. And as we did our surface assessments, how wide are the roads? What are they composed of? How long? Sidewalks, curbs, all that inventorying. We came to realize that we needed to boil this down into kind of this low, medium, and difficult, because we don't want to start with all the difficult streets. Not because we're not going to do them and that we're afraid of the hard work, but if we start that, it could be 3 years before we start talking about some of the easy streets. So we need to understand the complexities of each street before we kind of form our work plan. And we had the opportunity, knowing we had started this conversation with you guys even back in November of last year, to plan out. You know, we hit it end of March of this year. Our whole team went out and surveyed every street. Water Resources, as they started to be able to evaluate the pipes, water, sewer, stormwater permits that are on the streets. This needs more time because their records are not as visible. They are going back to handwritten notes from 1960, faded on water-soaked pieces of paper, and trying to interpret, you know, what kind of service and information are on these unaccepted streets to evaluate them. They are not records that we have worked with heavily like an accepted street. So their dive is a little bit deeper to be able to kind of create this understanding of, you know, let's get some streets that can be wins. Let's solve some of the problems of the streets we do believe that we will eventually accept as our sorting method. So that is our categorization try to evaluate it. And it's a lot of different factors, legal, infrastructure, just as well as the service that we're providing.
Thank you. And my next question, I guess, would be, if you don't know this is still in development. That makes sense. But as far as we know right now, in terms, what would be the differentiator between at the staff pursues acceptance step? And I guess like that would, a yes to that would be your recommendations for the city council on what to extend. What exactly would be the determining factors for that? And I know you're going to send us the streets either on an individual basis or like Becca said in batches, but yeah, what would be if you have criteria yet for that crucial yes or no, what would that be? If you don't know that yet,
I kind of, what my personal opinion means towards, I don't know that it's my professional opinion yet. Having heard kind of the general acceptance for not accepting things that are up to standard from the Duke and even at the city council, we can take that information and look at streets that already have kind of the arrangement that looks more standard. I'm not talking that it has to have curb or sidewalk, but it actually seems to have a roadway and have driveways off of it. There are a reasonable number that are grouped to kind of in that geometry of laying out a street, laying out a parcel, laying out something like that. Those are things that are easier for us to maintain. There's another category of these streets that are areas where people drive down and park in and amongst. And I'm not saying we couldn't get there on some of those, but they're going to require a little bit more formality that could take away parking from places. And that could not feel good to people. And then they may change their mind about wanting to fall under the accepted streets. So those are going to require a little bit more of a neighborhood level discussion. How this come about? Because we've had some of these discussions. Philip and I lived through this with some streets where it's like, who owns the parking and how are we parking here and why am I being ticketed or why am I being towed by this random company? Because it's very organic conversation. And then there is a category of streets, and it's very limited, that I don't even know how we fit a plow down it, but you've checked the box multiple times that we have plowed some of these streets, and I don't know how we're doing that with our previous equipment. I don't know how that we're going to do that with our current equipment. And I would not recommend acceptance of a very small handful of, really, these are driveways to 2 to 3 properties. But if you feel differently, we will follow the process and we will accept it.
Staff make recommendations, city council makes decisions.
Yeah, of course, but I appreciate your recommendations. Spend your whole day doing this. And okay, so yeah, that all makes sense. And I guess like part of my consideration once we reach that step, I guess, is everything that you just said. But then also like, I'm thinking of, and we're all thinking about this, but like the reality of not accepting a street based on this flow chart, it means confirming its status as private. As we've heard, there's a lot of streets where there is no, maybe never, or at least now no active for decades association of neighbors that have a pot of money to do stuff with their roads. And then, yeah, then arrangements are going to have to be made even further. So that's something that weighs on me heavily with the prospect of having to not accept some of these streets. But again, that's all on a case by case basis. So
yeah. My hunch is that grouping of people are smaller in length streets that are likely a dirt road already, and the level to continue to maintain it is not all that much. And with proper notification that, if we choose to maintain the dirt surface or plow the dirt surface, we take no liability. Could be one that the city council pursues. And as long as we are doing it in the, spirit of fire access and emergency access, with a known kind of clause of like, if we create a pothole because we drove our fire truck down here, like that's a structural problem of the road. That's not public works. That's not the city. you and your neighbors still need to figure out how to own that street. But we will plow it, we'll throw a little bit of gravel, you know, maybe that's our understanding there. But I do feel that there's some of the streets that are going to require a neighborhood level discussion that I don't know that everybody's going to feel the same at the end of this, that they want their street accepted. And then there's going to still be the folks that we've heard from and are still hearing from that are like, look, my street looks like a street. Why do you not put this? And that's fine. And we're here to still support that. We just need to do it according to state statutes.
Yeah, great, thank you. Well, Eric asked me one of my questions. And maybe to build on what was asked, I'm guessing you'll have you have a number of criteria. You'll have a sort of a matrix or something, and you'll sort of go through and see there'll be costs associated with each cell of the matrix, maybe, and maybe it'll be red light, green light, yellow light, sort of thing. But will that document and that process be shared? And that's question one. And then question 1A is, would it come to this committee first? Once you get to that point, before you made a recommendation, or maybe you haven't thought that through entirely yet.
I mean, the hope is they bring it August. To yes.
Okay.
The groupings of streets.
Yes. The groupings of streets.
Yes. In terms of what we share, we want to provide you information and data that's driving our recommendation.
Right, so it wouldn't just be black box, this street's in, this street's out. We'd see the criteria.
Right.
So
It'd be what's driving
Yeah.
kind of a data-driven approach to trying to sort this into something that we can actually do something with in a reasonable amount of time. And which streets, even though we might be really emotionally connected to North Cove, that's going to be extremely hard. And if we choose that street, I know.
That's my
If we choose that street to move forward with right away, it may still take 3 years. It's a long street. There's a lot of parcels on that street. And that is one of the factors, just the length of the street is a factor in its difficulty because it has that many more titles to research. It has that much more water line to figure out. It has that much more, they don't have sewer out there. So
and that's a major issue. They don't have sewer. And if we take it over, what are we promising?
Yeah.
And so these are complicated.
But that's an expense.
Yes. So yes, we want to share data with you. So you are partners in reviewing what we've technically collected and what it means to us and see if it means the same thing to you.
And it sounds like a good process to me based on what you laid out here today. And then we have these check-in points as well so that we can see how the process is unfolding. Because, I've shared it on other discussions we've had about this, that my default position is we should be accepting the streets unless there's a compelling reason not to. And so I'm keenly interested in seeing what happened to this, and I appreciate this work.
I do want to just answer your cost question because you've raised it and Councilor Broderick raised it as well. So the surface is a little bit easier. The data that we've collected, we could start applying reasonable multipliers. A paved street that needs a full reconstruction, which most of these do, is going to cost X amount per square foot. This is how many square feet of street there are. We can get order of magnitude costs. And that's what we hope to bring to kind of the first recommendation is an order of magnitude cost. We're going to give you what the cost is to replace the entire water line on the street, but we won't know what year that's going to be in because we can't see it yet. The next step, if after seeing this and saying, okay, it's going to take $3 million to accept this street, move forward, city and DPW, keep going. We're going to then pothole. We're going to dig down, we're going to expose some of these utilities and really find out the condition that they're in, what they're made of, if they match any of our records. And then before you say, yes, you're 100% on board, finish the title work, finish the legal stuff, because the street is now going to cost $4.5 million. Because that water line needs X, Y, and Z, it gets to be upsized. I don't know, they put in a 2-inch service, that's not what they marked, or we'll dig it up and be like, wow, I don't know who didn't write it down, but that is perfect water line and nobody sitting here will still be employed with that's it.
Well, and so the other, and I appreciate that, and that makes sense to me as well. But I guess the other thing is, like, we've heard, and especially I'll use North Cove, since you use North Cove, is like, this is a street that the city's been allegedly taking care of for like 70 or 80 years. So
With some help from the neighborhood.
with some help from the neighborhood and maybe even help from Colchester to borrow the grader from time to time. You know, like if it takes like 5 years to do the research on that or whatever amount of time, I mean, in the scale of time that this road has been in existence and been in this sort of indeterminate state, I think that's fine personally. I know there's opportunity costs of staff taking time to do all this research, and I'm wondering if there may not be an opportunity to outsource some of that somehow. I don't know if you thought about that or you need to or whatever.
Yep.
And if you did, then I would suggest putting that in your budget for next year.
Yeah, so our goal is to return back to the chief earlier and the city council during budget season to present kind of what our cost request is for FY28 so that we can match up the process and start that next summer with any of that further investigation that's necessary to answer questions and to make decisions. If ultimately you guys are ready to accept a street without knowing the condition of the water line, that's also helpful to understand, but we'll know that before this time next year, be able to make decisions from that.
Yeah, just to add a point, we have identified some funding in FY27 using street capital dollars to assist us with some of the data collection and work. That is not sufficient enough for us to do the deeper dive in the subterranean work with water. And so we're starting a process. We've been smart to budget. It's certainly not the entirety of the funding needed to do this right. This is going to be a multi-year process. We need to try to learn from our first couple streets, build this budget a little organically, but we're moving, I think, in the right direction. But together, we're going to have to resource it additionally as we move forward. But we have thought about bringing outside counsel in, surveyors in, people who can add to our capacity beyond ours.
Excellent. And my last comment, I guess, would be around, so like there's this idea of acceptance, and which is really about city commitment to maintaining the street at some level. Yeah. And certainly if we own it, we have to maintain it. But this other area that we're going to explore is where, and like Mayor Planner, we don't have associations in some of these things. So if we get to a point where we need some sort of formal arrangement with a neighborhood to do something, we'd still have perhaps a commitment that we could come to terms with. We're going to take care of this street. It's not going to be accepted potentially, but we're going to commit to grading it or doing something to it to some level at some point. And we'll have to figure that out. And those are going to be the harder ones probably that we defer till later. Is that fair to say?
Possibly. The city attorney's office had provided a statement about being able to use, these types of maintenance dollars outside the city's right of way as it relates to the greater good. I have to go back and find where he cited that. But it's not outside of the realm of what we are allowed to do with the city's budget. It just comes down to a risk of doing work on property that is not town highway that we would want to make sure we resolve with the neighbors if we left them unaccepted.
Okay, well, that's helpful. And I'm glad we're continuing this discussion and sort of moving slowly. But I've seen that Councilor Bergman's joined us. And so I don't know how long you were hanging out there, Gene, before we let you in.
No, virtually nothing. So I'll be quiet.
No, you can weigh in on unaccepted streets if you'd like to.
No, I just pulled in, so I'm good.
We'll give you the prerogative to do so because we know we acknowledge it's your birthday, and some people have been before us here today and already sent their birthday wishes to you.
Well, I thank you all. It's a pleasure to spend my birthday at a town meeting after coming back from a budget meeting. And you probably want my big fat mouth to be as quiet as it can be, so I'm not too snarky. So that'll be my birthday gift to you guys.
Thanks for joining. So yeah, so just to conclude on my comments is that I fully expect that there'll be some of these things, some streets, and I'm hoping it's a very, very small number, that we can't accept. It's a distinct possibility, anyways. And we'll have to figure something out for those streets. And, I'm hoping that we'll be committed to supporting those residents who pay taxes and have thought that they live on a city road, maybe purchase their house thinking they live on a city road.
So in the flip chart, if the city council says no, there was 3 criteria. I'm only remembering 2 of them. One is we need to figure out any underground utility easements that we need on these. And I'm just going to pick one out of thin air, like Colchester Court. It kind of looks like you can navigate it, because that was one of your pictures, right?
Was.
Kind of looks like you can navigate it. It has some on-street parking. It definitely has a water line, and it definitely has a sewer line on it. So we need to figure out our utility easements, because we should not be doing anything with the water line on that street if we don't have an easement. It will also become, do we want to own any of the water line on the street? I think Colchester Court is the one that actually feeds all the way over to Szymanska Park.
Yes.
One of them connects over. It's a through connection. So we do want to own the water line on that street. We need an easement to make sure that we are properly maintained. Second one was about maintenance on streets that we choose to accept. I can't remember the third point.
It was acquiring necessary utilities, which is mentioned, and then formally record ownership of the street and clarify its responsibilities.
Yeah. So yes, that is identified in our chart, so that we'll make sure we take that step.
Okay, excellent. Well, I will, if you ask to speak, or you can keep it to a minute, because it's fine. And Kara Simone again, who's spoken public comment.
Hi. So thank you so much for the presentation. It's very helpful. I couldn't see the flow chart from here, but I'll be sure to go home and check that out. I'm a little bit concerned about the phasing and the costs, especially like the subterranean costs. I want to say that, as Champlain has pointed out many times now, these are just continuing to deteriorate. I expect that they're going to be dated. Nobody's touched them in 60 years. So I expect they're circa in 70 or whatever they would put in there. I think that when you present to the city council and say this is going to cost $3.5 million to maintain the street, that you can amortize that over 10 years, 20 years. We don't need the water lines replaced tomorrow. And I would just hope that, I'm more concerned about something emergent happening. Not, I understand we want the city up to code and we want everything to be standardized, but those costs, I would hope, could be defrayed over time. And, as we do with all maintenance in the city, that they could be gradually absorbed and on a schedule, and that these costs aren't presented to the city council in such a way that it's like we already have a $11 million shortfall this year, and now we're going to tap on accepting streets, and that just seems like an overwhelming thing. I thought the same thing with saying that we have 89 accepted streets was a little bit misleading, because obviously there are a lot of homeowners and condo associations that, there's really 20 streets that we're talking about that we need to wrestle with. And I think, again, that number 89 is overwhelming, and you're talking about a couple million to however many million to accept.
Good, thank you. Do you want to respond?
No, we acknowledge, but we do need to do the work on all of them.
I understand that. I'm hoping that when it's presented with some context.
Yeah, understood.
Okay, well, we appreciate you coming back. This may have been the 3rd or 4th time you've been back, and we can expect you back in August.
Yeah, that's the plan.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate you giving us the time. We know this is complex, and together we're going to address issues that have been hanging out for decades that hopefully future generations will have to grapple with.
On that point, it's going to go in one of our presentation documents where you're going to update any street signs for streets that will remain private or identified as private. That this will be something that is better known to renters and people who are purchasing streets, that we will update and modernize our signage.
Yeah, great. Good. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll close that item. That was the last item on our deliberative agenda. So we'll turn next to the director's report.
Great. I'll just be quick and say we're finishing up our NPA tour that we've been doing this spring. We're at Ward 8 later this week. And then we talked about Champlain Parkway and special events. We didn't talk about Main Street and special events. There's 2 upcoming. One is a parade with an art installation on June 3rd. Details soon forthcoming. And then a community-wide celebration for Main Street on July 17th and 18th. There'll be information sent to you all on this. Both this project and the Parkway remain on time and on budget. So that's my updates.
Okay. Next we have Councilor Items. And you have anything, Merritt? You have anything, Becca? Or Gene?
I have.
Oh, go ahead, Merritt.
Just as the Ward 8 City Councilor, we finally have pedestrian signals at College in South Willard, where there's been car lights for a while, but no pedestrian lighting, and that's in my opinion a massive victory.
Yeah.
So just wanted to thank you all for your work.
We'll pass that on to the traffic team. One of the huge successes of that project is that project was done in-house. Our staff has really grown and saved money and did the project safely, and they'll be pleased to hear that. I'll pass it on.
Becca or Gene, before I go?
I don't have any updates, but I did also appreciate the College and Willard signals myself too. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mark, are you going to lay out the...
I'm going to do that next.
Perfect. I got nothing.
Okay. But then I will go last. And Gene and I met last week to sort of go through, this is become like an annual process for him and I. And before we put anything to paper, I'll also invite the other members of the committee to weigh in, but I would share with you first our thoughts on, and I'll do it orally here, and then we can follow up. I'll follow up with an email to the committee, and you can respond back to it to me. But we talked about doing some planning for the next year, the next 2 year. And so I can report that we're pretty locked in, and we have been for June. It was going to be May, and now it's June, and we're going to have BED coming back to report on the McNeil efficiency measures that were in the district energy resolution that we passed a couple of years ago, maybe 3 years ago almost now. Progress on emissions reduction and consumption of wood and I know that BED also has an update for us on the battery storage project that they have going on. And then we're also going to have DPI, Department of Permitting Inspections, coming in to update us on progress they've made on their weatherization ordinance progress that has been sort of stymied because of the lack of workers to do the efficiency work. I know we've had works programs and things in the city to try to grow that workforce. So we're going to get an update on that, along with updating on numbers on the carbon pollution impact fee, and a benchmarking report. And I've talked to Bill Ward about this, and he's going to be prepared to come in to speak to those topics. Other topics, so that's June, but other topics for the future that we talked about were this is something that Gene has continually talked about, is passive home and building code standards, and perhaps have some of the efficiency utilities speak to this, along with some other folks. And so we have that going on in the nearer term. Also having the airport back to report on their certification process. I forgot exactly what their certification's called, but essentially to reduce their emissions at the airport. And so I'll put this in an email to the, and then I'll invite your ideas as well. And then we'll try to set out a tentative agenda or sequence for these things anyways, knowing that the city's business continues and we need to interleave these topics with other emerging city needs that come before this committee. And so that's my update, but I mean, I'll also use it as a discussion, an open for discussion if others want to respond to that. How did I do, Gene? Did I cover everything?
Yeah, I think so. Although, we'll obviously have the ability to look at the comprehensive list in writing, which is, I think, the key piece.
Yeah. That's sort of those are sort of the high points. And if there are other topics that are near and dear to other members of the committee, we can throw those into the mix as well.
Yeah.
So
that sounds great to me.
Look for that, like in the next, I was hoping to have something done ahead of this meeting, but I didn't because I have other commitments that got in the way of that. But I will have that done next week or so. That's my update, which brings us to the last item on our agenda, which is, or the next meeting item on our agenda, which is tentatively scheduled for the 23rd of June at 5:30. Does that work for everybody? That's the fourth Tuesday in June, which would be keeping with our standard meeting time. Anybody have an issue with that?
You said the 18th? I'm sorry.
The 23rd.
23rd.
of June.
I'm sorry. Let me. Okay, no, that's good for me. Sorry, I heard wrong.
Yeah, it's good for Mayor too. Becca, that works for you?
Yeah,
Okay,
that's good for me.
And so we'll make that our next meeting.
Perfect.
And with no further business and absent objection, I will adjourn us at 6:59.